The millionaire CEO froze when he walked into his office and found a childish drawing on his desk. A cleaning lady stood in front of him, humiliated, clutching her son's shoulders as if protecting him from the storm in the CEO's eyes. "Did your kid put this on my desk?" he snapped. But the boy didn't hide. He stepped forward, lifted the drawing with trembling hands, and whispered, "I made it. Because you looked lonely." The tension cracked through the room like lightning. The CEO's anger, the mother's fear, the child's innocence. And in that tiny moment, a secret began to unravel, one that would shake the entire building. Before we begin this emotional story, tell us in the comments from which city you are watching, and don't forget to leave your like to keep following us. The blinds rattled softly in the late afternoon wind as Michael Turner, the millionaire CEO feared more than respected inside his own glass tower in downtown Chicago, slammed a stack of reports on the steel desk. His jaw tightened, the tendons in his neck standing out like wires pulled too tight. Across the room, two junior managers froze mid-step, waiting for the storm to pass. It didn't. Michael shot them a glance so sharp it could slice skin. "Get out," he muttered. They didn't need to be told twice. The office door clicked shut, leaving only the hum of the city below and the golden dust drifting in the sunbeams cutting across the giant windows. Michael rubbed his temples, breathing through frustration that tasted metallic. The board wanted numbers, the shareholders wanted growth, everyone wanted something, and yet, despite all the noise, the room felt hollow, like a cathedral stripped of its worshippers. He opened his eyes and froze. Something was lying on his desk, a piece of paper, not corporate stationery, not a contract, not another envelope full of demands. A drawing, bright, messy, unapologetically colorful. He frowned, leaning closer. Crayon strokes, a sun with rays like dancing flames, two figures holding hands, one tall, one small, a red balloon floating above them, a woman smiling beside them in a yellow dress, every inch filled with the kind of joy the real world rarely delivered. Michael didn't touch it at first. It felt intrusive somehow, like someone had opened a window in a sealed room. Footsteps echoed in the corridor, soft but uneven, almost shy. When the door cracked open, a boy stepped inside, maybe 6, maybe younger. Skinny arms, hair sticking up in stubborn directions, and eyes too honest for a place like this. He held another drawing under his arm. Michael straightened. "What are you doing in here?" His voice came out harsher than he intended, scraping against the silence. The boy blinked, gripping the paper so tightly it bent at the corners. "My mom said you're the boss," he said quietly. "So I wanted to give you something." Michael looked again at the drawing on his desk. "This is yours?" The boy nodded, swallowing. It's you, and me, and my mom. She cleans the floor outside your office." His voice wavered a little. "She works a lot. A janitor's son." Michael's brow lowered, an instinctive shield rising. People didn't just walk into his office. There were procedures, assistants, boundaries sharper than the edges of his desk. "Why?" he asked. The boy took a step closer. His sneakers squeaked on the polished floor. He held out the second drawing, offering it with both hands as if it were something sacred. "Because you looked sad yesterday," he whispered. Michael's breath stalled. No one noticed his moods. No one dared. Yet this child, this tiny intruder, had walked in with crayons and sincerity instead of fear. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the new drawing. Just as his fingertips brushed the paper, a shadow appeared in the doorway, someone watching, tense, uncertain. The moment cracked like thin ice, e a figura na porta prendeu o ar, como se soubesse que algo ali estava prestes a explodir. The shadow in the doorway tightened its grip on the moment before stepping fully into the room. It was Olivia Ramirez, the cleaning lady, thin shoulders, tired eyes, and a name tag frayed from years of scrubbing other people's footprints. Her breath came short, as if she had run up the entire stairwell rather than take the elevator she usually avoided, so executives wouldn't stare. "Matteo," she whispered, her voice cracking as she hurried forward. "You can't be in here. I told you to wait by the cart." The boy lowered his head instantly, clutching the drawing against his chest. "Sorry, Mum." Olivia reached him and gently touched his shoulder, her hand trembling. She didn't dare look at Michael at first. Only after a long inhale did she finally turn to him, and the fear behind her polite smile was almost painful to witness. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Turner," she said. "He didn't mean to bother you. I'll take him right away." Michael opened his mouth, but nothing coherent formed. He wasn't used to being apologized to by people who never did anything wrong. He wasn't used to a child offering him a drawing. And he definitely wasn't used to seeing someone look at him like he had the power to crush their entire world with a sentence. The silence stretched until Olivia gently nudged her son toward the door. Matteo obeyed at first, but when his sneakers reached the threshold, he looked back. His eyes, so open, so simple, landed on Michael with a quiet bravery. "I just wanted you to smile," he murmured. For a second, the air felt too thin. Michael cleared his throat. "Wait." Both Olivia and Matteo froze. Michael stepped around his desk. He wasn't sure why his chest felt tight, or why the room suddenly seemed warmer, or why the boy's trembling hands bothered him more than any board meeting ever had. Maybe it was the drawing still lying on his desk, radiating innocence in a place that usually suffocated it. He crouched slightly, not enough to look small, but enough to face the child without towering over him. "You drew this?" he asked again, softer this time. Matteo nodded. "And the other one?" Michael eyed the second picture the boy held. The child offered it, his fingers smudged with blue and red crayon dust. Michael accepted it. This drawing was different, less colorful, more deliberate. A tall gray building, a small window at the top. Inside it, a man sitting alone at a desk surrounded by shadows. It stung in a place Michael didn't know still existed. "You saw me like this?" he asked quietly. Matteo shrugged. "You looked lonely." Olivia shut her eyes for a second as if bracing for consequences. Michael didn't speak. His gaze lingered on the drawing, on the tiny figure trapped behind the glass. Before he could form a response, a loud voice erupted from the hallway. "Mr. Turner, the investors are here early." The door swung open and the intrusion shattered the fragile moment like glass hitting tile. The door slammed fully open as Raymond Carter, Michael's senior advisor, stormed into the office with his tablet in hand, and impatience carved into every line of his face. His voice boomed without noticing the small figures beside the doorway. "Michael, they moved the meeting up. They're in the conference room waiting for—" He froze mid-sentence when he finally registered Olivia and Matteo. His expression twisted instantly, the way some men reacted to things they believed didn't belong in their polished world. "What is this?" Olivia instinctively stepped in front of her son, her shoulders tensing like a shield far too small to stop the blow she feared was coming. Michael saw it. He saw everything, the protective stance, the quiet humiliation, the quick apology forming on her lips, even though she had nothing to be sorry for. Raymond raised an eyebrow. "Why are they in your office?" Michael straightened, sliding the drawings onto his desk with deliberate care. "They weren't disturbing anything," he said. Raymond blinked, surprised by the softness in Michael's tone. "Well, they shouldn't be here at all. We have strict access protocols." Matteo shrank behind his mother's leg. Olivia's voice shook. "I'm truly sorry, sir. He just wanted to—" "It's fine," Michael cut in. Raymond shot him a look, not a questioning look, an accusing one. As if kindness were a mistake Michael couldn't afford. "Michael," Raymond said under his breath, "the investors are waiting. You can't be late to this one. They're already edgy. We need the expansion deal." The weight of corporate urgency pressed against the fragile warmth that had briefly filled the office. Michael glanced at the clock, then at Olivia, then at the small boy peeking up at him with hopeful eyes. For a moment, two worlds collided, the one he had built out of steel, deadlines, and long, cold nights, and the one captured in crayon, where someone believed he deserved to smile. He exhaled slowly. "Give me 1 minute," Michael told Raymond. Raymond scoffed. "A minute? Michael, 1 minute." Raymond muttered something under his breath and stepped out, letting the door fall shut with a frustrated thud. The room quieted again. Michael turned back to Olivia and Matteo. "You're not in trouble," he said, directing the words to both of them. "No one here should talk to you like you don't belong." Olivia's eyes trembled with emotion she tried to suppress. "Thank you, Mr. Turner. We'll go now." Michael hesitated. then crouched once more to Matteo's level. "I'll keep your drawings," he said. "Both of them." Matteo's face lit with a shy spark. "Really?" Michael nodded. "Really?" Olivia gently took her son's hand, guiding him toward the exit. As they stepped into the hallway, the fading light from the office window cast their silhouettes long and thin across the floor. Michael watched them disappear around the corner, but before the door fully closed, he caught something he wasn't expecting. Olivia wiping the corner of her eye with the back of her hand, as if holding back a storm she couldn't let anyone see. The sight stayed with him long after they were gone. The conference room felt colder than usual, even with the afternoon sun slanting across the sleek table, where 6 investors waited like judges behind polished glass. Michael entered with his usual controlled stride, but something in his expression had shifted, an awareness lingering beneath the business armor he wore so naturally. Raymond noticed instantly and frowned. "Finally," one of the investors muttered, adjusting his cufflinks. Michael took his seat at the head of the table. "Let's begin." They dove into numbers, projections, market risks, voices bouncing sharply off the walls. Michael responded with precision, but his mind kept drifting back to the drawing he'd left on his desk. The little window, the lonely figure, the way Matteo had looked at him. Without fear, only concern. It was unsettling how deeply that small gesture had seeped into him. Halfway through the meeting, Raymond tapped his tablet impatiently. "Michael, did you hear the question? They want to know if we're pushing forward with the Dallas acquisition or postponing it." Michael blinked back into the room. 6 pairs of eyes watched him with the impatience of men who never had time for human moments. "We move forward," he said, "but not before we evaluate the workforce impact. We need a cleaner transition plan." Raymond turned sharply. "Since when are we hesitating about workforce cuts?" Michael held his gaze. "Since they matter." A quiet silence rippled through the room, not loud, not confrontational, just unexpected. He continued, "Rushing could destabilize the whole division. We'll restructure, but not at the cost of burning out the people who hold the groundwork together." Raymond's glare deepened. He leaned closer, whispering through clenched teeth, "You're acting strange today." Michael ignored him. For the rest of the meeting, he focused, but something in him resisted the machinery-like efficiency he usually embodied. Every time he glanced at the window, he imagined that small crayon figure staring out from an office far too high above the world. When the meeting finally adjourned, he stood quickly. Raymond followed him out. "What was that?" Raymond demanded as they walked down the corridor. "You're sentimental all of a sudden, because of a janitor and her kid?" Michael stopped walking. The hallway emptied around them, leaving only the soft hum of air conditioning. He turned slowly to Raymond, his eyes cold but steady. "Watch your tone." Raymond scoffed. "Come on, Michael. You can't let people like that disrupt your head." "It's not..." "People like what?" Michael asked. Raymond hesitated, but Michael didn't. He took a step closer. "If I ever hear you talk about my employees or their families like that again, you and I will have a very different conversation." Raymond stared at him, thrown off by the shift. Michael walked away without waiting for a reply, but as he approached his office, he noticed something he hadn't expected: Olivia's cleaning cart parked alone beside the door, her gloves draped over the handle as if she'd left in a rush. And the office lights were still on. The light spilling under Michael's office door felt wrong, too still, too quiet, like a held breath. He pushed the door open slowly, expecting the room to be empty. Instead, he found Olivia standing by the corner of his desk, her hands clasped tightly in front of her chest. She had removed her gloves, revealing knuckles reddened from years of bleach and winter air. She startled when he entered. "Mr. Turner, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be here. I was just finishing up the vacuuming and Matteo, he forgot something earlier." Her voice strained around the edges, as if it had been pulled too thin. Michael stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The city lights shimmered beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting soft reflections on the polished floor. "You don't have to apologize every time you breathe," he said quietly. Olivia looked down, twisting her fingers together. "I try not to inconvenience anyone." "You didn't," he replied. She hesitated, then took a small object from her pocket, a blue crayon, barely an inch long. "He left this," she explained. "He wanted to finish a drawing at home." Michael took it gently. The wax felt warm from her hand. "I'll give it back when I see him." Olivia opened her mouth, then closed it again, her throat working. Something heavy pressed on her features. He could see it, feel it, like gravity bending her shoulders. "Is something wrong?" he asked. For a moment she tried to mask it with a smile. It broke almost immediately. I'm in trouble," she whispered. The words carried more weight than their softness suggested. Michael felt a shift in the air, the same way a room changes right before a storm. He stepped closer, careful not to push her. What happened? She took a shaky breath, her eyes glistening. The company that manages the janitorial staff. They cut hours again. They're moving people around. My supervisor said if I can't cover night shifts this month, I'll lose my position entirely. Michael frowned. "Why can't you cover them?" Her hands tightened. "Because Mateo can't be left alone overnight. His sitter moved back to Texas. I haven't found anyone else, and I can't afford it anyway." The admission cracked something open between them, a small truth, but painfully human. She continued, almost apologetic for existing. "I thought maybe I could talk to someone, but when I mentioned it to your advisor, he told me not to bring personal problems upstairs again." Michael's jaw clenched. Of course he did. Olivia wiped her cheek with the back of her hand, embarrassed by the tear she hadn't meant to show. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said any of this. I'll keep working. I'll figure something out. I always do." He stared at her for a long moment, feeling the weight of her resilience like a stone in his chest. "You shouldn't have to do this alone," he said softly. She looked up, surprised, hopeful, afraid all at once. Before either of them could speak again, a sudden crash echoed from the hallway. A small, sharp sound, followed by a child's cry. Michael rushed into the hallway before Olivia could even move. The sound had been sharp, glass, metal, something hitting the floor with enough force to echo through the corridor. When he turned the corner, he found Mateo sitting on the ground, his small hands trembling as he clutched his elbow. A metal trash bin lay on its side beside him, rolling in slow circles. "Mateo!" Olivia cried as she hurried past Michael and dropped to her knees. She cupped her son's face with both hands, checking him frantically. "Baby, are you hurt? Let me see." Mateo tried to be brave, swallowing back a sob, but his eyes shone with pain. I didn't mean to knock it over." Michael crouched down opposite Olivia. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're not in trouble." The boy nodded but didn't look convinced. Olivia examined his arm carefully. No blood, just a deep red mark forming. She exhaled in relief, but kept holding him close. "You scared me," she whispered, brushing his hair back. As she comforted him, Michael noticed something else. The hallway wasn't empty. Raymond stood a few feet away, arms crossed, disapproval radiating from him like static. His expression carried that same condescending edge he'd shown earlier. "What is going on?" Raymond demanded. "Why is a child running around in restricted areas at this hour?" Olivia flinched. Mateo pressed his face against her shoulder. Michael rose slowly to his feet. "He's not running around, he fell." Raymond lifted a brow. "This is exactly the kind of disruption I warned about. Staff family members shouldn't be wandering the executive floor. We have protocol for a reason." Michael stiffened. "Protocol doesn't matter right now." Raymond's jaw worked. "It does if you expect this place to run properly. Do you know what the board would say if they saw—" "Raymond," Michael said sharply. "Enough." Olivia stood, holding Mateo's hand, her voice small but steady. "I'll take him downstairs. I'm sorry for the mess." Raymond waved a dismissive hand. "Yes, please do. We've already lost enough time today." Mateo's eyes darted to Michael, uncertain. Michael felt a heat rise in his chest. Not anger exactly, but something heavier, more decisive. Raymond's tone, the fear in Mateo's posture, the exhaustion carved into Olivia's face. It all pushed him past a line he didn't realize he'd drawn. He stepped between them. "Olivia," he said gently, "why don't you take him to my office instead? Let him sit inside for a moment while you finish your shift." She blinked, stunned. "In your office? I don't want to intrude." "You're not intruding." Raymond gaped. "Michael, what are you doing?" Michael didn't look at him. "Making a decision." Olivia hesitated, torn between gratitude and disbelief. "If you're sure—" "I am." She nodded softly, guiding Matteo toward the office. The boy paused halfway, glancing back at Michael as if silently asking whether it was truly allowed. Michael offered a small nod. Raymond waited until they were out of earshot. "You're making a mistake," he snapped. "Personal involvement leads to chaos. Do you really want to blur the line between CEO and staff?" Michael's answer was quiet but firm. Maybe that line needed to be blurred a long time ago. Raymond stared at him like he didn't recognize him anymore. And for the first time in years, Michael felt like he didn't recognize himself either, but not in a way that scared him, in a way that felt necessary. Olivia guided Matteo carefully into Michael's office, seating him on the small leather couch near the window. The boy leaned back, cradling his elbow, but his eyes wandered toward the skyline. Chicago shimmering beneath the night, skyscrapers rising like steel promises. He had never been this high up before, or softened the fear still clinging to his shoulders. Michael entered moments later, closing the door behind him with a soft click. The bustling noise of the hallway faded instantly, leaving only the low hum of the city far below. Matteo straightened when he saw him, trying to be brave. Michael knelt beside the couch again. "You feeling better?" The boy nodded. "It just stings." Olivia hovered nearby, hands clasped. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Turner. He shouldn't have come back up here. I told him we were leaving after I finished the 10th floor. Matteo lowered his head. "I just wanted to give you something else." He reached slowly into his backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was creased, worn, the edges soft from being handled too much. Michael's gaze softened. "May I see it?" Matteo handed it over gently. When Michael unfolded it, he found a drawing unlike the others, more detailed, more careful. A boardroom table. Tall men arguing, and at the head of the table a figure slumped forward with a grey storm cloud above him. A single sentence was written at the bottom in crooked letters. "You look tired. I hope you rest soon." Michael felt something shift inside him, a quiet breaking in a place he'd kept locked for years. Olivia noticed his expression and lowered her voice. "He worries about people, even strangers." Michael shook his head slowly. "I'm not a stranger anymore." Matteo offered a small smile, unsure of what that meant, but sensing it mattered. A soft knock at the door interrupted them. Not sharp, not demanding, uncertain. When Michael opened it, the building's night supervisor, Mr. Wallace, stood awkwardly with a clipboard in hand. "Sir, sorry to bother you," he began, eyes darting toward Olivia and Matteo inside the office. "But the janitorial company sent notice tonight. They finalized the schedule changes." "Olivia, she's been marked for a shift transfer starting next week. Night shifts only." Olivia's face drained of color. Michael took the clipboard from Wallace, scanning the document. No explanation, no accommodation, just a cold line assigning her hours that would make her choose between a job and her child. The same company Raymond had insisted they keep for efficiency. He felt a chill spread under his skin. "Thank you for bringing this to me," he told Wallace. Wallace nodded and retreated, closing the door softly. Inside, Olivia swallowed hard. "I'll figure something out," she whispered, though her voice carried no conviction. "I always do." Matteo pressed his small hand into hers, sensing her fear. Michael looked at them, really looked. Olivia's exhaustion, Matteo's bravery, the quiet dignity they carried despite being stepped on by a system that didn't care if they broke. And suddenly, the drawing in his pocket felt heavier. He made a decision before doubt could interfere. "Olivia," he said, his voice low but steady, "I'm not letting them do this to you." She blinked, startled. "What do you mean?" Michael stepped closer, his expression resolute. "I'm taking over the contract." A silence fell so deep it felt physical, settling over the room like falling snow. Olivia stared at him, unsure whether she had heard correctly, and Matteo's small fingers tightened around hers, waiting for what came next. Olivia blinked as if the words had struck her physically. You're taking over the contract." Her voice trembled between disbelief and fear, like she was afraid to trust something that sounded too much like hope. Michael nodded once. "The janitorial company works for us. If they're making decisions that harm the people who keep this building running, then the problem is them, not you." Olivia shook her head quickly, stepping backward. Mr. Turner, please, I don't want you risking anything because of me. I can't be the reason you change your business deals. You're not the reason, he said quietly. They are. Before she could respond, the office door flew open without a knock. Raymond burst inside, indignation blazing on his face. Michael, what are you doing? I just got word from Wallace that you're interfering with the vendor schedule. You can't do that in the middle of negotiations. We need that contract for the Dallas expansion. Michael turned toward him, his expression unreadable. Close the door. Raymond hesitated. Michael, this is exactly what I warned you about. You're letting a personal situation cloud your judgment. Close the door. Raymond shut it reluctantly, muttering to himself. Michael took a slow step toward him. Did you know about the schedule change? Raymond scoffed. Of course. They told me earlier. It's standard. Low-level staff always get moved around. It's not our concern. Matteo clutched his mother's hand tighter. Olivia's shoulders curled inward, as if bracing for something sharp. Michael's voice lowered, chilling the air. You didn't think it mattered to tell me. Why would it? Raymond snapped. It's janitorial logistics. They're replaceable. The silence that followed was so stark it felt like the entire floor held its breath. Michael's jaw tightened, but his voice remained frighteningly calm. Don't ever say that again. Raymond looked confused for a moment, then irritated. You're seriously going to make a scene over this? Over her? Michael pointed toward the chrome trash bin still dented from Matteo's fall. A child got hurt today because you pushed his mother into a corner she couldn't escape. That's not my problem, Raymond insisted. Childcare isn't the company's responsibility. Michael stepped closer. It is when our contracted policies make it impossible for her to work. Raymond let out a humorless laugh. You're losing your mind. Since when do you care about cleaners and kids? You've changed, Michael. And not in a good way. Something in Michael's face stilled, as if the last piece of patience inside him clicked into place. You're right, he said. I've changed. Raymond's smirk faltered. Michael took one more step, voice dropping to a controlled, icy whisper. Do you know what real leadership looks like? It looks like knowing every person under your roof matters. It looks like never calling a woman who works 3 jobs replaceable. And it looks like standing up for a child who had the courage to walk into my office when a room full of adults never would. Raymond stared, stunned. Michael continued, Pack your things. You're done here. The words landed like a gavel. Raymond's face drained. You're firing me. Over them. I'm firing you, Michael said, because you forgot what being human means. For the first time, Raymond looked small. He opened his mouth to protest, but Olivia spoke first. Quiet, unsteady, but brave. Please, don't blame us for this. Michael shook his head. This isn't on you. This is on him. Raymond backed toward the door, speechless. When he finally slipped out, the room fell into a silence that hummed like a live wire. Olivia exhaled shakily. Matteo pressed against her side. Michael looked at them with a resolve that hadn't existed an hour ago. Tomorrow, he said softly, everything changes. And outside the window, the city lights shimmered as if listening. The next morning, the glass tower felt different. Not quieter, not louder, just charged like the air before the first drop of rain. Employees whispered in corners, glancing toward Michael's office as if trying to decode the shift they sensed, but couldn't name. Rumors traveled faster than elevators, and the news of Raymond's abrupt exit had already raced through the building. Michael stepped out of the elevator with a purpose he hadn't felt in years. The weight that usually clung to him, deadlines, expectations, loneliness, had loosened its grip. But something else had settled in its place. Clarity. Olivia was already working on the 12th floor, sweeping near the wide corridor windows. The morning sun cast her shadow long across the polished floor. Matteo sat quietly beside her on a small stool, coloring a fresh sheet of paper with slow, careful strokes. Michael approached, and Olivia immediately straightened, startled. Mr. Turner. Good morning. Morning, he said, softer than she expected. Matteo lifted his head. Hi. Michael smiled faintly. Hi, buddy. The boy returned to his coloring, more relaxed now that he knew he wasn't in trouble. Olivia, Michael began gently. I made some calls last night. Her broom stopped mid-sweep. I reviewed the contract with the janitorial company, and I terminated it this morning. Her eyes widened, panic flickering. Mr. Turner, no, please. I don't want anyone to lose. No one is losing their jobs, he assured her. Just the opposite. He handed her a printed letter, neatly folded. She hesitated before opening it. As her eyes moved over the words, her breath caught. You're offering to bring the entire janitorial team in-house? She whispered. Yes. With better pay, full benefits, stable hours, and childcare subsidies for employees who need them. She blinked rapidly. Why would you do this? Michael glanced toward Matteo, who was concentrating intensely on coloring inside the lines. Because no one who works this hard should have to choose between a job and their child, and because I should have seen all of this sooner. Emotion trembled across her face. Gratitude, disbelief, fear of being disappointed, all tangled together. Mr. Turner, she said quietly, there are people who've been here for years. This will change their lives. That's the idea. A small voice chimed in. I made something for you. Matteo held up a drawing, still drying, edges curled slightly. This one showed Michael standing beside the same tall building as before, but now the window wasn't dark. A bright yellow light filled it, and outside a small figure waved up at him. You're not lonely anymore, Matteo said simply. Michael swallowed, the innocence of the words hitting him harder than any boardroom confrontation ever had. Before he could respond, the elevator dinged behind them. Several employees stepped out, pausing when they saw the three of them together. Some watched curiously, others smiled. For the first time, Michael didn't care who saw. He folded the new drawing carefully and slipped it into his jacket. Thank you, Matteo. This one means a lot. Matteo grinned, swinging his legs lightly. Olivia wiped her eyes quickly before tears could fall. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to, Michael said, but even as he spoke, he felt something stirring, something deeper than gratitude, something he had avoided for years, something he wasn't ready to name, not yet. By late afternoon, the entire building felt like it had been rewritten. The janitorial staff whispered in small groups near the service elevators, disbelief and relief flickering across tired faces. Supervisors who had spent years afraid of losing hours now stood a little straighter. Word of the new contracts passed from hand to hand like something fragile and miraculous. Michael watched it all from the balcony overlooking the atrium. For once, he didn't stand apart. He didn't retreat behind tinted glass or digital walls. He simply observed the quiet gratitude, the hesitant but genuine smiles, and felt something inside him settle for the first time in years. Olivia approached from the far end of the walkway, wiping her hands on her apron out of habit, even though her shift had ended. Matteo walked beside her, backpack bouncing with each step, the strap slipping off his shoulder until she gently fixed it. When they reached him, Olivia spoke first. Everyone is talking about what you did. They don't know how to react. That's all right, Michael said. Change takes time. She studied him for a moment, her eyes searching not for answers but for sincerity. She found it. You changed everything today, she whispered. He lowered his gaze briefly. I just corrected something that was wrong. Matteo tugged at his sleeve. Are you going home now? Michael hesitated. Home. The word didn't mean much anymore. The penthouse was quiet, sterile, filled with furniture chosen by an interior designer he barely remembered meeting. He spent most nights in silence so thick it felt like fog. Eventually, he said. Matteo's small brow furrowed as if considering something important. Then he reached into his backpack again and pulled out a tiny object, a red balloon sticker. Cheap, a bit crinkled, but bright. You should put this on your desk, he said, pressing it into Michael's palm. It'll make it happier. Michael stared at the sticker, and for a moment his throat tightened. I think that's a good idea. Olivia exhaled a small laugh, soft and warm. He decorates everything with those. That's a gift, Michael replied. Her smile faded into something gentler, something that made him feel seen in a way he hadn't expected. Mr. Turner, she began. Michael, he corrected softly. She nodded. Michael, if you ever need, I don't know, company for coffee or dinner or just someone to talk to, we're not far. Mateo loves drawing after school. And She hesitated, cheeks warming. I wouldn't mind the break. A breeze drifted through the atrium, stirring the loose strands of her hair. Michael didn't rush his answer. He let the moment sit between them, warm and fragile. I'd like that, he finally said. Olivia's smile deepened, relieved and hopeful. Mateo grinned. The three of them stood there, no longer CEO, cleaning lady, and janitor's son, but something closer, something beginning. As they walked toward the elevator together, Michael glanced at the drawing tucked safely in his jacket. The window wasn't dark anymore, and for the first time in a long time, neither was he. In the days that followed, the tower felt different, lighter, warmer. Olivia no longer walked with fear in her steps, and Mateo filled every corner with quiet color, as if drawing life back into a place that had forgotten how to feel. Michael kept the final drawing on his desk, a simple sketch of three figures standing together. Every time he looked at it, he was reminded of the moment everything shifted, when a lonely man opened his heart and a small boy showed him the meaning of being seen. And in that fragile new beginning, something unspoken formed between them, not grand, not rushed, just real. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this heart-touching story. Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most. Subscribe and turn on the bell to receive more stories that inspire and transform. Leave a like if you believe in the invisible strength of dignity and family. And above all, thank you for being part of this community that believes in stories with soul. And before you go, watch the story I leave here on the left. I'm sure it will also move you and make you reflect.